Hello, Star Trek fans. Welcome to ReBingeIT. This is the ReBinge Star Trek Voyager podcast. My name is Kim.
And my name is James.
And we are rebinging Star Trek Voyager from the beginning, one episode at a time. Welcome back to the podcast. Today we are on Season 4, Episode 3, Day of Honor. This episode aired September 17th, 1997. Before we talk about this one, anything to say about yesterday's episode, which was The Gift?
No, it was quite good. I mean, the idea of what it takes to actually remove all the Borg technology from someone. I assume Picard had to go through this, or was Picard not quite as assimilated?
No, he definitely wasn't as assimilated. Because remember, we talked about it. They were putting implants in when her physical body was smaller. So her body grew and her organs grew and her brain grew. Whereas Picard's might have shrunk a little bit in the time he was a Borg. But I think this is completely different.
Yeah.
And also he remembers being human, whereas she barely remembers.
Yeah, she remembers being a child.
Yeah.
You'd think there'd be serious psychological damage.
Oh, yeah. PTSD. So I'm waiting to hear if the podcast was perfect.
Yes, it was perfect.
Okay. So then should we get on with today's episode?
Yes, you have the notes. Over to you.
I don't know if we mentioned it, but we're doing 2 this weekend because it's Comic-Con for us this coming weekend. So we will not be recording. So we're trying to get one in the bank.
And I still haven't decided what I'm going to go and cosplay as. There's probably going to be one day of the Blessed Earth Dread.
And a guy with new walking shoes.
Well, yes. Well, that'll be every day.
I think you should go as the chicken, at least for part of a day or something.
Maybe that could be Sunday. Sunday could be the chicken.
I think it's a good idea. Okay, let's get started. I'm going to start slightly differently.
Oh, really? Okay.
With this episode than we have ever done before in our, I don't know, how many episodes have we done? 250 episodes overall. And the reason is because in the cold open of this episode, I'm pretty sure I'm being trolled because we have 7 of 9 in her Borg alcove with a flashing white light that is literally flashing on her nipples and straight down from her pubic bone. I mean, I can only ask, WTF, are we doing Star Trek? I must have been losing my mind about this 30 years ago because I didn't yet know what this character would become. At least, I mean, she got off to a pretty good start in the first few episodes, which is nice. But at this point, I must have still been like, why are you doing this? This is absolutely ridiculous for the audience you've gained.
Yeah.
It's almost insulting.
It's the flashing boob lights are what my note says.
That's accurate. If you missed it, go back and watch it. I don't know how you could have missed it. It was so ridiculous. Or if you didn't see it and you just listened to us and you don't watch the episode over, you should go and treat yourself to some flashing boobs. It's insane. Anyway, when 7 hears the doors of the cargo bay slide open, she steps down from her alcove and we get another full body shot of this abnormally corseted creature. And of course, we don't miss an opportunity to again show her boobs and what appears to be pointy nipples, which we did not see last week. And I think it's built into this stupid costume.
Oh, I can remember. I remember you watching this back in the day and you pausing it and just saying to me, I can't stop looking at her boobs.
I probably didn't pause it. We were probably watching it live. That's the funny part.
I just remember dying with laughter when you said that.
Yes. I mean, children, you didn't used to be able to pause shows when you watched them live. It just wasn't a thing unless you were actually recording it and watching it back on a VHS tape.
Yeah.
And then, you know what? It would have probably been hard, and also on the 19-inch tube television, it would have been hard to see exactly what was going on here, but it is very obvious now. Back to the show. So she requested a meeting with Chakotay because she's hoping for a duty assignment. And she says she's finding it difficult to spend so much time alone. I bet she is. She says the hours do not pass quickly. And he asks if she has something in mind, and she says yes. So we jump to engineering, where B'Elanna is having a particularly bad day. Vorik is annoying her. I bet Vorik's just existence annoys her. But he is annoying her while things all around are broken. Tom enters because he always shows up at the worst possible time.
Yeah.
He asks if she's still going through with the ritual of the Klingon Day of Honor, and she says she thought about it, and no, she's decided she's not going to do it. She says absolutely everything has gone wrong today, and the last thing she needs is to get involved in some obscure Klingon ritual.
Fair game.
She does admit to feeling a bit testy, and Tom says it's okay, but hopes that she'll still have dinner with him later. On his way out, he passes Chuckles, and he quietly warns him to be careful.
That kind of made me laugh. Do you think that's pointing to maybe Chakotay and Tom are actually having a more normal relationship rather than the abject hatred of each other? Has one of them gotten over it?
No, I think, well, maybe Tom. I think Chakotay ignores Tom as much as he can. And in fact, he does ignore him here and just goes right up to B'Elanna and starts talking to her.
Yeah.
He tells her that 7 of 9 has requested an assignment in engineering, which makes B'Elanna even more annoyed.
She's just having a great day, isn't she?
He suggests that she help create a transwarp conduit so Voyager can travel faster than warp, but B'Elanna doesn't think that's a good idea. She even calls him naive. She says, bottom line is, I don't want her working in engineering. And Chakotay says, no, the bottom line is, I'm giving you an order and you're going to follow it. She quickly agrees, and we go into the opening credits.
Yeah, her tone changes. She calls him sir, as he really is putting his foot down.
Yeah, I made a note about this in Janeway's Leadership Corner, so we'll talk a little bit about it later. But yeah, she changed her tone very quickly.
I am going to point out here, I find part of this slightly unforgivable. They're leaving 7 alone in the cargo bay, knowing she has difficulty integrating and that she's been part of the collective, and she's finding the lack of voices and the lack of connection a problem, and you're leaving this poor woman alone?
Yeah, it's kind of like torture.
Yeah.
I was trying to figure out if she had no interaction at all, or if it was just when she was regenerating, she was in there, and then she didn't have anything to do, I guess. But yeah, it seems like she's just in there all the time, which you can't do that. Well, you shouldn't do that to anyone.
Right.
Yeah.
The only excuse I would accept for this is she's speaking relatively. Like, there are crew members, there is somebody interacting with her, maybe telling her about the ship or Starfleet or doing something.
Yeah.
Basically to keep her occupied.
I hope so, like Neelix is dropping in, or I don't know, something.
Something like that's happening.
Yeah.
And she's speaking relatively of the 4 hours or 6 hours, however long it is that she actually recharges. That's the point where she's like, I'm all alone during this.
Yeah, I hope she's not alone.
Yeah. So from her perspective, this is a huge amount of time that I don't have anybody alone. Whereas from a normal human standpoint, it's like, I just want a few hours of quiet.
Yeah. Yeah, I like quiet time, but
right.
I don't necessarily want 24 hours of quiet time. Well, I was going to say hopefully she eats in the mess hall, but she's not eating yet. The regeneration is all that she's doing so far. So yeah, she probably is getting very little interaction. And it's not like people are just going to drop by to say hi because they want to talk to the Borg.
Yeah.
I could see Neelix doing it, but I can't necessarily see anybody else just dropping by to have a chat with the Borg, especially when she's not particularly chatty. So it is a little weird.
Hopefully they can get us some podcasts at the very least.
Yeah, she could. Maybe she's listening to Tuvok's podcast. Really, she should be listening to Dax's podcast, Inappropriate Conversations with Jadzia Dax, because that's where she'll really learn about people.
That's true, but she'd probably like Tuvok's podcast because it would be very dry.
Yeah, yes, and efficient.
Yeah, efficient.
So now we go to Captain Janeway's office where she's questioning 7 of 9 about whether she will again attempt to contact the Borg. And 7 says she will not. Janeway tells her she must follow the rules and take orders from B'Elanna, and she does agree to that. So Janeway decides she can work in engineering without a security escort. Then she tries to get 7 of 9 to use her human name of Annika, which does not go over well. However, she does agree to go by 7, an imprecise designation, but acceptable.
It's also not that bad a name, really.
No, 7's, well, I guess maybe because we're now so used to 7.
True. Would have been weird at the time.
But it's pretty good. It is better than 7 of 9, yeah.
She could go by the name of 709. I mean, that sounds almost Irish.
When I was trying to use the dictation feature rather than type, every time I would say 7 of 9, it would put in 709. I'm like, oh, it's not what I said.
Because, Seven doesn't sound that far away from Sven, and that is it doesn't sound like a bad name.
Yeah. Before we go to the bridge, I have to continue to complain about this outfit that Seven is wearing. The trouble with it is that it's shiny and it's reflective. So it's bright from sort of the bottom of her neck to just below her boobs. And then it's dark underneath that. So it like draws your eye to it. It just really highlights it, which is why I'm constantly catching myself going, oh, why am I looking at this woman's chest? I am not a boob person. I don't want to look at her boobs, but it's just, I can't help it.
I think that was Berman's idea.
Unfortunately, it was his idea, and another reason I'm sure Kate Mulgrew was annoyed. But on top of that, this costume is obviously ridiculously uncomfortable because she stands absolutely bored straight and she barely moves. Like she cannot turn, she can't twist her body at all, and she will just sort of turn her head. But it's really obvious when you watch it, and it's like you think, oh, well, that's because, she's a Borg and she doesn't have natural movement. No, that is not why. It's because she is so constricted by this outfit that she is not moving like a normal person. And I also am just looking at her, I know she can't breathe. Yeah. You can see it.
Well, I read that was actually a really tight-fitting corset she was basically wearing.
It's clear it's a corset, yeah.
And I don't know how many of the stories are true, but it's alleged she passed out on set because of the heat and the inability to breathe wearing the thing.
I wouldn't be even slightly surprised by that. The outfit is comical. It would look really good in a comic book.
Yeah.
And I'm sure someone who didn't have to wear it thought it looked great.
Yeah.
Okay, onto the bridge, where a damaged ship is approaching, and we meet Raman of the Katati people. It seems the Katati lost millions of their people to Borg assimilation, and there are only a few thousand of them left, and they only have 30 ships. He says they need food and supplies and a small quantity of thorium isotopes.
Yeah.
Janeway agrees to help as much as she is able.
I thought they were 10 years travel away from Borg space. So have these guys been traveling for like 10 years?
Oh, maybe.
Did somebody in the writing room forget how far away they are?
I think I read that episode 2 is actually meant to be episode 4. So, maybe they're out of order again, and they're actually still meant to be in Borg space.
That would make complete sense if they were that close to the Borg.
Yeah. But I mean, the Borg do get everywhere. They don't just stay in Borg space, so...
Yeah, they might have made a special trip out to assimilate these people. Just for the hell of it,
Just a special day trip. Yeah. They got in a little conduit, went out for the day, came back, made a picnic lunch, came back.
Did a little bit of assimilating, came home.
Yeah. In engineering, Vorik is working on gathering the isotopes while B'Elanna keeps an eye on Seven.
Yeah.
She asks her if she has feelings of remorse for all of the lives the Borg ruined, and Seven just says, no.
This is wildly out of line questioning about Seven's actions as a Borg. Did anybody ask Picard what it was like to murder all those people at Wolf 3?
Yeah, didn't Sisko?
Oh, yeah, Sisko was kind of upset with him. Yeah. Okay, and so did what's his name in Picard, yeah.
That was
Todd
funny.
Sashwick's character. Okay, yeah, Picard did get the same kind of grief. But I still think it's wildly out of line. It would be like getting upset at Kes about what she did when she was under the influence of the Autarch.
Yeah, definitely similar to that. I don't think it's out of order to carry on a conversation, but to make it like an accusation is rude.
Yes.
I mean, maybe asking her if something has an impact on her, or if she felt anything or whatever. That I get. That could just be part of conversation once you kind of get to know someone.
Right.
But yeah, B'Elanna's coming in hot. There's no doubt.
Yeah.
I mean, she does say she's looking for a sense of guilt or anything, right? But Seven says guilt is irrelevant. And I do have some more notes about this in overanalysis, so we will talk about this a little bit more, because it's actually interesting, not the conversation, but how it might affect her now that she's trying to transition from being a Borg to a human. Seven just goes right back to business, saying it will be several hours before they can test the transwarp conduit, so she's going to wait in her alcove. B'Elanna very coldly agrees. Though, to be fair, the last time B'Elanna turned her back on Seven, she did call the collective. So...
Okay, yeah,
Okay.
Can I borrow your phone, B'Elanna? I've just got one quick call to make.
I just gotta make a quick call.
It's local.
Yeah, it was then. Now we go to the mess hall where Neelix finds B'Elanna sulking. He's brought her blood pie for the Day of Honor, but B'Elanna says she's decided to ignore the tradition, And she describes it as having to examine her behavior over the last year to see if she measures up to Klingon standards.
Yeah, was she honorable for the year?
Neelix cautiously asks if he can make a suggestion, and she says yes. He says she has a bit of a temper and really bottles up her anger, causing her to sort of explode.
Yeah.
And he kindly offers to be a pressure valve. He says, "Call me names, insult me, question my parentage. I won't take it personally." B'Elanna genuinely thanks him, feeling a bit more comfortable to open up to him. And she says she's questioning shunning the ceremony, as this stuff seemed a lot worse when she was a child than it seems to her now. Neelix kind of pats her hand, and B'Elanna digs into the blood pie, which, when she ate it, it looked like maybe butternut squash, is how I would describe it.
Yeah.
And it does not look like she enjoys it.
I might have been hungry when watching this scene, but what B'Elanna looks like she's eating, that like salad thing, it looked like it had some pickled cabbage on it. It actually looked kind of interesting. It's almost the opposite of Deep Space Nine food, which was always the sad melon.
It was always melon.
And I would criticize the blood pie and say it's disgusting, but I do eat black pudding.
Right. This looked more like a pumpkin pie, honestly.
People can look up what that great British delicacy is and be horrified.
Yeah, we used to eat it in the Midwest, too. We just called it something else. What did you call it?
Black pudding.
Yeah, we just called it like blood sausage, which I always thought as a kid sounded terrible. Please don't give me that. By the way, in this scene, Neelix is being quite empathetic and showing emotional intelligence. And I just kept thinking, this is what Tom should be doing. But anyway, this is what the cook is doing.
Yeah. The morale officer and cook.
But like, you and I are each other's morale officer.
It's an important thing to do.
And Tom needs to figure it out.
Tom is a terrible boyfriend. I mean, I'll admit I wasn't a perfect boyfriend back in those days. Unlike today.
Oh yeah, you're perfect now.
But Tom is next level bad.
Yeah. And we're going to cover some of that as we go. So now we're off to the holodeck for some Klingon stuff, and B'Elanna faces a big Klingon in a dark cave who asks if she's willing to see the ceremony through. And she isn't terribly convincing. She's like, I guess that's why I'm here.
No.
And he says it starts by eating the heart of a Targ, which she does. And that's for courage. And then drinking some drink from the Grail of Kalis. And she does that, and she looks really grossed out. And then he asks how she's proven herself worthy, and she kind of babbles about not being on a battlefield, and I don't know, and so he is not impressed. So he says she'll have to endure 20 pain sticks, followed by a battle with a Batleth master, and she says, you know what, no thanks, and she tries to leave.
I keep on thinking of Worf's bachelor party, where it all involved, all involved
similar.
These awful Klingon rituals that involved pain and suffering, and Martog and Worf loved it.
Similar vibes, yeah. And the rest of them all thought they were there to have, like, some beers, and that is not what happened.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so she tries to leave, but the Klingon grabs her, and some other Klingons move in and start zapping her with pain sticks, but she gets into a fight with them and kind of wins before running out.
Okay. We have to talk about this. I feel B'Elanna is kind of missing something here. She has a lot of accomplishments. Klingons love to exaggerate. It's part of, we saw that with Martog, the Ankor, the bluster, the bluff. B'Elanna should be embracing this. When he asks her, what did she do? She should be like, every soul aboard Voyager owes me their life.
Well, it's true.
Again and again, I achieve the impossible. That would be a true Klingon response to that question.
Well, and she could have talked about, like, in the episode Dreadnought, where she pretty much laid her life on the line, right, to try to save the ship. And in the end, she was rescued. But that was a fight to the death.
Prototype.
Yeah.
I brought life to the lifeless. Like Kalis, I breathed life into the dead.
Yeah, she should have prepared because she knew what she was going to be asked, but she just sort of went in there half-assed and then didn't have answers to the questions. And,
Klingons who would be present at something like that would all be going, oh, yeah, me too. That's just the kind of thing I did. I feel that would be a big part of the Klingon bluster, puffing up their chest.
But she's never like that. She's probably spent a lot of her life trying to not be like that.
Yeah.
And maybe when she sees that from Klingon, she really bristles. And that's sort of fighting with the human part of her, where she was raised in a human environment.
Yeah.
So it doesn't come naturally, but at the same time, you set the thing up. So you know what's going to happen. So prepare yourself for it.
Yes.
If you're going to do it right, to quote Wham. Sorry, 90s kids. So later in B'Elanna's quarters, Tom comes in, and here's where we're going to have some trouble with Tom. He comes in asking how the ceremony went, and then says her bad attitude is boring. He is such a jerk. He is so asking to be punched. She punched the wrong guy in season 1. Should have punched this guy. It's like, I have an idea. How about we ask her how she's feeling and how we can help?
Wow. You mean
like Neelix.
Being an empathetic boyfriend instead of Tom, the jerk.
But you don't even have to be a boyfriend. Just...
Oh, well, yes, right. Just
a friend.
A friend.
A human. A leader. You outrank her. We've covered this a few times. It's like, what are you doing? And nope, instead, he doubles down. He says, you owe me the courtesy of telling me what happened. Like, what?
Tom, do you feel entitled all the time or just some of it?
Oh, all the time. All the time. And then he says he cares about her, but if she's going to keep pushing him away, he's leaving. And then, thank God, he does.
This was exactly the same conversation that they had in...
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a repeat.
In Displaced. This exact conversation, basically word for word.
Yes. Maybe we forgot. It was months ago. But, yeah, it was so tired. He can't be this much of a simpleton.
Yeah.
Can he?
I feel it's really bad tropey writing. The writing of the relationship. Okay. Tom's emotional intelligence is basically zero. He's like a child.
It's zero.
It doesn't work for an adult.
No, I agree. And the real problem I have is this episode was written by Jerry Taylor, right? Which maybe explains why Voyager is in it. Because remember, that's her son in real life. But it's like, I just want to ask her, who hurt you? That you think this is the way women should be treated. And this is what women want, right? Because she is supposedly attracted to this. This behavior should not be rewarded with attraction or love.
Yeah.
She can do better. She can do better on this ship, which is a limited pool of people.
Vorik, when he's not suffering from Pomfar, might be a fine...
No. He's not better. He's not better. No, you absolutely cannot reward that. You gotta, in fact, she shouldn't be forced to work with him either. That is sexual harassment in so many ways. No. He should have been moved to a different department. And I thought he had been because we hadn't seen him since then.
I want to bring something else up before we leave this scene.
Yeah.
Now, can't somebody move beyond the mythology and superstitions of their homeworld? If B'Elanna's really not interested in it and is like, that's part of Klingon culture. That's part of a culture I don't accept, I'm not interested in, I don't want to follow. Then isn't that completely valid?
100%.
Why would you be pushing them? It's like if you were brought up in some kind of freaking cult and members of your crew were like, oh, why aren't you part of the Neurivian death cult? It's what your planet does. Why aren't you embracing it? And you're like, hell, I don't want anything to do with that. So I find that really kind of crazy that in this enlightened society, that anybody would be trying to push a particular cultural norm onto people.
Agreed. But remember, Tom said a few scenes ago that this was her idea to set up this ritual. And she said, yes, it was. She just didn't want to do it anymore. Right? The piece that's really missing is we see it because, I don't know, we're adults, but she's in conflict with her own nature.
Yeah.
And while she's not getting any kind of therapy or anything to help her with that, instead she's dealing with this child. This is the part that drives me crazy. Yeah. Like, he should have looked at the event, the work that they did together, because it was probably fun putting the thing together and working on a project. Yeah. It's the journey, not the destination. But then if it gets to a point where she was like, I think I made a mistake, I really don't want those emotions to be brought back to me, right? I don't want to remember that.
Yeah.
He should have gone, okay, and just moved on.
Yeah, right.
But instead, he's being a big baby about it and say, I deserve this. I was like, this doesn't have anything to do with you.
Yeah.
That's what makes me crazy. So I agree with what you're saying. If this is an enlightened society, we should not be like this. We should be very respectful of what everybody wants from their own culture and their own history. But also, if we're too perfect, the show gets boring. That was one of the criticisms the writers had of Gene Roddenberry and his utopian sensibilities.
It would be easy to write this in a more sympathetic way.
Yeah.
Where it's like, Tom's reaction to this would be, okay, you don't want to do that, but you seem kind of keen on it. Are you sure?
Yeah. Do you want to talk about it? Do you want me to go through it and then, tell you what happened?
It seems like there's a lot of better ways you could address that. If the overall goal is to bring the character B'Elanna, that she embraces some of the Klingon traditions that she was forced to do as a child, that she rejected, and then as an adult, she sees the importance of them or she accepts them, you could still end up in that endpoint.
Yeah.
Without being so clunky.
You could build a much richer character if you did that. They would handle this really differently in modern Trek. They would be much more respectful of her feelings about it. And maybe it's the modern world that makes us look at this so negatively, but there's just zero respect for her going on here. And it's really hard to watch. It's like what we would talk about on Deep Space Nine with Odo. I just always felt like nobody cared about Odo's feelings in the early days. Like they didn't think he had feelings, but they knew he had feelings, but they still treated him like he didn't. And it's the same here. It's like, oh, she's a Klingon, so she's tough, right? So she can take anything. It's like, clearly, no, she's in absolute conflict with who she wants to be, who she is, and who she was. But we're not getting any therapy about that. We're getting instead, you owe me whatever. It's like, oh my God.
Wasn't that another Wham song, You Owe Me Nothing? No, that was Bros.
No. I don't remember that one.
That was definitely Bros.
A Careless Whisper wasn't even a Wham song. It was just Wake Me Up Before You Go Go. That's the only other one I remember. And then, of course, the Christmas song.
Well, I just remember because one of the members of Bros, who were actually brothers, played Prince Narada in Hellboy and the Golden Army.
Oh, we are all over the place today. Now we're in Hellboy.
I loved Hellboy. Conquer a Worm. Oh. That's totally worth it. Anybody wants Hellboy, that's absolute standout readable.
Back to this show. Now we're having an in-person chat with a different Katati. I didn't realize it was a different one until the closed captions gave this person a different name.
I thought it was all the same person.
It's a different person.
Oh, that's funny.
When Janeway says they can't give up any more than they've already offered, he says he sees they're living in luxury and figures they'd rather keep their bellies full than help others.
Wow.
Neelix defends the crew from this guilt trip, but Janeway offers more food and supplies and the alien thanks her. I did not trust these people from the beginning. Yeah. I knew they were trouble.
You know that they do this to everyone.
That makes us sound a little bit like Bill Murray and Scrooge. They are like this every day of the week. I guarantee it. Really, they're just starving and they're just trying to get some help.
Scrape them off.
Scrape them off. Claire, oh my God. If you use Teams in your work environment, there are Scrooged memes available to you.
Which is absolutely awesome.
In the GIFs.
Yeah. At least I work somewhere you can find.
Now we go to Tom and Seven walking and talking about transwarp conduits when they pass Tuvok and the Katati representative. And the guy points at Seven and asks, what species is that? And as usual, we give way too much private information out for no reason. Tuvok says, it's a human who lived as a Borg. I mean, this is private medical information he did not need to share. He could have just said she's human.
She's human.
And stop pointing at people.
She's an augmented human. If you, at most, you could say augmented human. No, and I think that's even a little bit too much.
No, he asked what species. She's human.
Yeah, she's human.
Well, the Katati starts freaking out and yelling, asking what she did with his family, and Seven doesn't really react, although Tom gets in between them. Eventually, they separate from the alien, and Tom apologizes, but Seven is unfazed. Yeah. She's like, he didn't hurt me.
Those people were weak anyway. They were easy to assimilate.
She doesn't say that, does she?
No.
I'm like, what?
She was thinking that.
She says a lot of people on the ship have similar feelings, and he agrees that's true, but he says he isn't one of those people, and he'll help her any way he can.
Is he hitting on her?
Well, I was wondering if we did this specifically so everyone watching it would think that that's what he was doing, because did he just break up with B'Elanna? Oh, now he's moved on to Seven, and just to kind of add some drama?
Yeah.
Because he's not the right person to say that.
Yeah.
I think Harry is probably the right person to say something like that.
He does actually make a point here, which I thought was good, because he talked about second chances and what people thought about him.
Yeah.
Maybe that was part of it in the writing to make him think he was interested in Seven.
Yeah. Later, we're ready to try and open a transwarp conduit. We have a temporary tachyon matrix in the main deflector, and we start by going to warp. Things go badly very quickly, and as the subspace field starts to form, tachyon particles leak into the propulsion system, and we have to shut everything down.
It all goes horribly wrong. And shockingly, B'Elanna actually says they're going to try this one step at a time. They're actually being cautious, and it goes even more wrong than they could have.
It still goes wrong. Well, even after they've shut everything down, the leaking continues, and we're forced to evacuate engineering and dramatically eject the core.
Oh, yeah. That was good. That was a great effect when we actually see Voyager eject its warp core. I think for the first time. Don't think it's the last time.
Yeah, and for it not to explode. I think the only time we've ever really done that is when we've used it as a weapon, right?
I don't remember that. It would make a good weapon.
No, it's been used. We've used that. We've exploded the core before in desperate situations. I don't remember if Voyager did, but we've definitely done it on Star Trek.
Yeah.
It was interesting in that scene because a lot of people tried to be heroes. I mean, Seven tried to be. She said, I can help, but B'Elanna ordered her to leave, and she left because Janeway told her, you need to do whatever B'Elanna says. And then B'Elanna tries to be a hero, and Tom makes her leave. And they get out in the hallway, and she has to admit to Janeway that they had to eject the core, and she says to herself, welcome to the worst day of my life. And girl is going to get worse.
Okay, over-analysis.
Yeah.
Should she have let 7 of 9 continue?
Probably.
I have the feeling 7 of 9 has a better handle on this and probably could have solved it. And B'Elanna was actually making the problem worse by not using the freaking expert they have in their midst.
But again, I reiterate, the last time she turned her back on 7 tried to call the collective. This is like day 1 of us trying to do something different with 7, so she hasn't quite earned the trust.
Yeah.
She's earned it with Janeway, but she hasn't earned it with B'Elanna. And also, don't forget, at this point, she could be thinking that 7 did this.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a good reason. That it could be sabotage.
Mm-hmm.
She did used to work with Seska.
Right. After an ad break, Janeway is in engineering, where she learns we don't even have impulse power, and we're millions of kilometers away from the core.
Yeah.
B'Elanna says she sent the Borg back to her alcove, and that gets a side eye from Janeway.
Yeah.
Janeway tells Tom to take a shuttle and go get the core, and take B'Elanna with him because it's going to require some repairs.
Okay. Another over-analysis point.
Yeah.
Soon as you eject the core and it doesn't explode, why isn't Janeway ordering every shuttle they have available to go and protect that core?
Yeah, I agree.
You only have one. Launch everything.
Yeah.
It's Pink 5. Today, everybody's got to go.
Yeah, because she ultimately only sends one person to go and get it. Yeah, I could have sent a couple shuttles. Although, are we down to one shuttle? Maybe we don't have any more.
I think there's 37 left.
We're churning them out. There's some guy down there, just keeps making them. Now we're in a shuttle with Tom and B'Elanna, and we encounter some random ion turbulence, which will come back later, of course. Chekhov's turbulence. Then B'Elanna tempts fate by saying, I wonder what else can go wrong today. And Tom says, how much worse can it get? You should never do that. Never ask that question because it immediately gets worse when you do that.
Yeah, that's a never ever say kind of thing.
Yeah. We find the core, but the Kitati have it in a tractor beam and claim salvage. We try to tell them that's dangerous, but they don't care.
Nope.
And the Kitati send an antimatter pulse at the shuttle, causing it to lose structural integrity. Tom and B'Elanna try fruitlessly to contact Voyager, but ultimately have to get into spacesuits and beam out into open space as the shuttle explodes. So your day just got a lot worse.
I hope they're far enough away, because I'd worry that the chances of being hit by debris from the exploding shuttle are ridiculously high. I mean, you're in space.
Yeah.
There's nothing in the way, and there's nothing to slow that debris down. So how many microparticles are just going to be turning them into human colonies? Well, and part Klingon colonies.
Yeah, they could have actually used that to damage the suits instead of what they do later.
Oh, that's true, yeah.
I think since they were able to beam out and didn't have to, jump out, I guess they could have beamed clear of it. But you're right, there's nothing to stop it from happening. Yeah.
So if those particles are moving at, hundreds of miles an hour from the explosion and they're heading in all directions, yeah.
Maybe they moved far enough away that it would take a few hours for it to get there. I don't know.
Hey, that's good headcanon there, Cam.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Every now and then I have some. Now floating in space, we try to contact Voyager with no luck. Tom suggests they basically link the comm system in each suit together to get a stronger signal and send a carrier wave. So B'Elanna does that, and it's quite funny to watch because what she's basically doing is somehow programming something with 7 unmarked buttons of light. It looks like she's trying to do it on a Simon game from the 80s. Like beep, beep, boop, boop. Oh, there you go. I fixed it. So here we are trapped in space in a pretty desperate situation, but we do have oxygen, so we wait. They do some of the usual Tom and B'Elanna banter, as there's really no point in continuing to bicker like they were earlier.
Indeed.
Back to Voyager, 7 enters Janeway's office, and she offers her tea or coffee, which is silly because that woman cannot digest anything while wearing this suit.
Yeah, oh yeah.
In the scene, we get a full side view as well, so we can see things that are abnormally padded and things that should have some padding don't have any. This poor woman is clearly strapped into that thing. Janeway claims she's invited 7 to help investigate what happened in engineering, a sort of retrospective.
Yeah.
But 7 quickly realizes she's suspected of wrongdoing. Janeway blinks really dramatically, admitting she is suspicious. I quite like that moment, actually. Like, there's no point in pretending.
Well, I like the way 7 says, as part of the collective, she's unaccustomed to deception because it's impossible within the collective.
Yeah, she says she had nothing to do with the accident, and Janeway does believe her. 7 lets out a small breath because it probably says she's supposed to sigh in this scene, but she hasn't been able to breathe since she put that outfit on, so she doesn't have any breath that she can let out. She says she's finding it difficult to navigate the complex social structures of the crew, which that's everybody. She calls the crew inefficient and contentious, yet capable of surprising acts of compassion. Janeway says that's one of the ways we define ourselves. This is, again, such a good scene. The two of them are so good together. Yeah. They have so much chemistry, and whatever was going on between them in real life, you just can't see it. They're just
agreed.
So great. Yeah. And the writing is really crisp in these scenes.
Do you think Janeway was genuinely concerned that 7 sabotaged the ship?
Yeah. I think she asked because of what B'Elanna said, right?
Yeah.
B'Elanna's like, I sent that Borg back to her alcove. I think that made her go,
Was there something
maybe
more
I made a mistake of sending her in without an escort. Although when she sends her in with an escort, that didn't work either. But I think it would have been neglectful of her to not be suspicious.
Yeah.
We still, again, we're like on day 2 or 3. I don't think you can just trust her.
Yeah. But we're letting her in engineering.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a very human thing, and it's not a bad leadership thing in general to give somebody a little bit more rope and to show them trust, because generally you'll get that trust back. This is slightly different in that we're talking about life or death, right? That's different, but I can see why you would do that in that situation if it weren't life or death. Back to our 2 floating in space, and B'Elanna says she's feeling sick to her stomach. And by the way, in this scene, the actress is pregnant. I don't know if you knew that. She's like 3 months pregnant, I think.
Yeah.
Lots of chit-chat, and then bad news that ion turbulence has returned to damage both of their suits.
Yep.
Tom loses oxygen, and they have to combine their air supply. B'Elanna's suit is damaged too, though, and they only have about half an hour of oxygen together.
Didn't they spin this story off into a movie with Sandra Bullock and George Clooney?
Oh, yeah, called Gravity. I don't see how the things that happen from here to the end of the episode are really less than half an hour. Vorik now calls Janeway to say impulse will be restored within the hour. Like, call me when it's restored. I don't want an hour warning. I just thought that was I think Jerry wanted to get her son back in this episode. Here's another line for Vorik.
Well, I think the character Vorik, he would be kind of a suck-up.
Yeah, well, sure, since B'Elanna's not here.
Yeah.
So in this scene, we get this front view of 7 is standing as Janeway sits, working at her desk, because Janeway can sit, but 7 cannot. And
it's impossible for her to do anything other than stand.
And my notes here just say vagina eagle. Should I just carry on and just leave that? For those who've listened to all of our episodes, I think you would know. You might remember that story about the vagina eagle, but it's just basically, it looks like we're just pointing to 7's vagina with her outfit in this scene. It's crazy. Meanwhile, 7 has found the cause of the accident. All the while, of course, just standing in one location because she cannot sit down and she cannot move. Anyway, it was due to erratic fluctuations in the ship's warp power. An accident. Chakotay comes in reporting they've picked up the carrier wave, but they can't hail Tom and B'Elanna, so Janeway's concerned they might be in trouble. Good idea. But they still don't have impulse power, so they can't really do much. And then Tuvok calls with yet another problem.
Are all the shuttles offline?
Yeah, we could have sent a shuttle. But maybe we would have, except for what happens right now. They're now surrounded by these other ships.
Okay.
So we go to the bridge and we learn an armada of Katati ships has arrived to make some threats. They've got Voyager's warp core and they want more food. On top of that, they want weapons, all of their thorium, and they want the Borg. That seems bad for 7. Back to Tom and B'Elanna, and they're both lightheaded. B'Elanna says it's ironic, but today, on the day of honor, she's going to die. Tom is like, you're not going to die. They disagree a bit, and they keep talking, using up precious oxygen. You should not be talking.
Try and make your oxygen last, people.
Tom knows that, they're talking about stuff that is so meaningless because he says that he knows she didn't like him when they first met, and he asks if she thinks he's changed. She makes a joke, but she does say yes, and I thought, has he?
Really?
Has he changed?
Yeah, he's slightly less than a petulant child.
Then she realizes that she's pushing him away again, saying, you were right about me. Oh, it's really nice that a man with no self-awareness was able to so quickly diagnose her. I mean, that's amazing. She calls herself a coward, and they cling to each other, as they are in a lot of trouble. Back on Voyager, Chuckles suggests that they just shoot their way out of trouble because regardless of shields or the warp core, Voyager does have more powerful weapons. 7 volunteers to surrender herself, but Janeway says, no, we're not doing that.
Wow, that was something from 7 there. I mean...
Yeah. Well, she's pretty emotionless, really,
Oh, so you think that was just a completely logical deduction to make? That's almost like a Vulcan type of thing.
Maybe. There's a bunch of different ways you could look at
Yeah.
it. I mean, based on what kind of happens in the rest of this scene, you could look at it like, well, the Borg would just sacrifice a drone for the collective.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
But you could also look at it like she is just being logical if she's trying to fit in to this collective.
Yeah.
Then to save the collective, she might be willing to sacrifice herself. I guess you could look at it either way.
Yeah. To a large extent, that it's following Borg programming.
Yeah, right. Why are the shields low? What happened to the shields?
I think because everything's powered by the warp core.
Oh, right. Which we don't have, which is on the other ship.
Which the Qatari are holding on to right now.
Well, 7 comes up with a new idea. She suggests giving them a way to replicate the thorium isotope so that they can sustain themselves. She's retained the knowledge from the assimilation of the Katati, and she says she could design an energy matrix that would produce those isotopes. Chakotay asks why she didn't mention this before, but she says she's not accustomed to thinking that way. The Borg don't give away technology. They assimilate it.
Yeah, well, steal it.
Janeway here sees an unexpected act of kindness. Off to engineering, where 7 very quickly builds an energy matrix. Again, we only had 30 minutes of oxygen on the other 2, but all this is supposed to happen in less than 30 minutes. So she builds an energy matrix, and they offer the Katati the necessary specifications and components to build as many as they need. They agree to let Voyager go, and they thank 7 for her help. And Janeway gets like a little moment to herself here where she's quite thrilled with this development of 7.
Janeway's pet project is already starting to show dividends.
That's right. Back to the 2 floating in space, Tom and B'Elanna are struggling to stay awake as their oxygen disappears. B'Elanna wants to tell Tom the truth about something before she dies, and she says, I love you. And he says, you picked a great time to tell me. And they again just kind of hold on to each other, assuming that this is the end.
This is what oxygen starvation does to the brain.
It makes you think you love it, jerk. But Janeway calls just in time, and they're beamed to safety. And this jerk couldn't even give B'Elanna the courtesy of saying something nice in that moment.
Yeah.
It's like he thinks, or someone thinks he's Han Solo.
Oh.
This is not the case. You are a child.
Tom is the furthest from Han Solo you could get.
That is quite true. And that's the end of the episode. Moving the prize of Worst Boyfriend from Neelix to Tom.
That's quite an achievement. I did laugh, though, at the end,
Yeah.
where Janeway says, prepare to beam aboard. They're running out of air and dying.
Yeah. What are they going to prepare? Okay, give us a second. Oh, we're ready. All right, over-analysis. What have you got?
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Chakotay wanting to fight his way out? What? Where did that come from? This is the guy who tries to de-escalate situations, whether it be dinosaurs who deny evolution or a race beaming onto the ship one at a time to try and take it over. And his first take seems to be shoot our way out? What happened here?
Well, I think it's all down to 2 members of the crew. Well, B'Elanna, because B'Elanna is in trouble.
Yeah.
And they're not hearing from her. So he knows they have limited time to get to her.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think he's just thinking about that. I mean, we can always come back and talk more later, but we can get out of this mess with a couple of phaser fires.
Yeah.
But I get your point. It's out of character. It would have maybe made more sense if Janeway just said it. Like, let's just shoot him. And then Seven said, wait, I have an idea.
Right.
Yeah, I get your point.
Next thing. So Seven retained the memory of this species that they assimilated and their technology. How much other really useful stuff does she have rattling around up there?
Yeah. I just don't see how you can remember too much.
Yeah.
Unless, I said this, I think, last week, unless she's got an external hard drive, which maybe she does.
Oh,
maybe that's built in somewhere.
Augmented somewhere. There's an offline, a giant offline storage where she can retain huge amounts of Borg collective knowledge.
Well, you know how we always hear that we only use 10% of our brains? I think that was proven. It wasn't quite true that it's not 10%, but we don't use 100% of our brains. I wonder if her time in the collective gave her access to more of her brain.
Maybe it's something like the Borg allow for extremely effective storage of information in a biological brain. So there's nothing actually physically different with its brain. It's just the Borg have a method, if you like, of just programming huge amounts of information into long-term memory and keeping it there.
Yeah, I think that's possible. I wonder, too, if somehow they don't store extraneous information.
Yeah.
And, you know, how we've joked about how you remember just random facts about things, but you can't remember sort of day-to-day stuff.
Absolute rubbish going back to the 80s.
Maybe, like, the opposite is true with the Borg. Once they're in the collective, those things are purged.
Yeah.
That's why she doesn't have many memories of her childhood. Yeah. It's just been purged.
So what's actually in there is massive amounts of technical information that the Borg would file under this could be useful.
Yeah. I wonder if that's sort of a neuroatypical thing, too, where there are people who can remember all kinds of things, very technical things, and where the rest of us just can't remember as much. I don't know. Maybe that's a normal human thing, I guess is what I'm saying. And we're trying to attribute it to the Borg doing something, but maybe this is just a trait she has.
And the Borg were able to exploit it by just filling up her mind with all this information.
Yeah.
See, there must be loads of useful stuff in there. They should, they should, you know, in that time when she says she's lonely, maybe they should have somebody debriefing her or talking to her about, you know, what are other
all
technology?
The different technologies and races, Or, teach me about transwarp conduits. She should be teaching. Exactly. Right. That's interesting. I really liked the moment where she says that she's not accustomed to thinking that way about how do I help others. Right. I thought that was actually quite interesting and kind of smartly written. And it explores a real difference in this character from how the rest of them would be. Because the rest of them are always trying to think how they can help their group and others. But she just has no experience doing that.
Well, I think that's part of what they're aiming for with that character, that you can kind of see that in this episode. The very basis of how the Federation people think is alien to the upbringing that Seven's had. This is where I joke, maybe it's because I remember what's coming later, that Seven is something of a project for Janeway.
Yeah, 100%.
Harnessing that human side of her that's been dormant for so long.
It's so funny because I think about managers I've had who've hired people who they thought would make good projects for themselves, and it never works. It just never works.
Oh, dear.
But anyway.
And I think we talked about everything else during the episode. So that wraps up my overanalysis. Over to you.
Well, I have a bit more, I guess, kind of along the same lines of what we were talking about with Seven. Yeah. Maybe a slightly meaty topic we can talk a little bit about.
Okay.
It's interesting to think if a child is raised by wolves, she can't become a wolf physically.
Yeah.
But can you become a wolf mentally and emotionally?
Yeah.
Is it possible for someone who is human and not, a deranged psychopath to completely lack empathy?
Interesting.
To be raised by people without empathy doesn't mean necessarily you won't have any. In fact, you might have more, but I don't know, do you still have to be exposed to it somewhere to see it? And now I guess she's being exposed now as an older person. But the other side of this is, from the Borg perspective, they were improving all life forms, right? That's what they thought. They were building, or they think they're building a better life form. So there's no reason for the guilt or empathy for others. And at the same time, with that as her upbringing, she has not yet really connected with her own humanity. And I would think she would have to get by this thing where she's not spending time with people. And she would also have to sort of get to the part where she's eating and being sort of a more normal part of the society.
Well, I think that comes down to the question of whether things like empathy are a natural human trait. And I think they are. Yeah. But part of the Borg is they suppress all those things because they don't see any of them as necessary, or they're actually detrimental to what they feel is bringing other races closer to perfection, as the Borg Queen said.
Yeah.
So if you're like the emotions or the how people would feel are there, just the Borg actually have a way of turning them all off.
Well, suppress them how? Was it one of the implants that we've dissolved?
I assume by the implants, by the nanotechnology that they have floating around in there.
So you think physically?
Oh, yeah. I think physically, that they alter the brain chemistry, that they alter the brain's workings.
The brain chemistry. That's interesting.
And they suppress those kind of things. Like, didn't we see Klingons in the Unity episode?
Mm.
So the Borg must have a way of, with the Klingons, their warrior urges, the way that they behave, they turn off all those signals. So I see that as an integral part of what they do, of how they work.
Okay, that's a really good point. But for the most part, those people were assimilated as fully formed adults.
Yeah.
I'm talking about Seven as a child being raised by wolves.
Well, okay. Maybe she has naturally empathy, altruism, the ideals of the Federation, but they're not developed. They're at the level of a child.
They're childlike.
Yes.
Okay, that's a really good point.
And now she actually has those back again. It's a learning process because those things haven't developed.
That's interesting. Okay, I hadn't thought about it that way.
Which is why I think emotionally she'd be, a disaster area.
She'd be a mess, yeah.
Yeah.
And there would be so much post-traumatic stress.
Yeah.
It's almost funny that she isn't showing any.
Right. Well, it's my point. How does Picard sleep at night? It's like, how does Seven actually function, considering emotionally she was a 9-year-old when she was assimilated?
Yeah, you'd think she'd be having flashes of assimilating others.
Yeah. Or maybe the Borg, they turn all that off, so you don't see it, so you don't feel it.
Oh, so she doesn't have that memory. Well, there's a good example of maybe a memory that they purged. Yeah. It's like, well, you don't need that. That doesn't do you any good.
You don't need to see the people screaming and running.
It's like that movie Up in the Air where George Clooney talks about where they're laying people off. And he's like, but they're all going to be fine. We give them these programs, everything's going to be fine. And Anna Kendrick is like, oh, you go back and check on them later. Oh, no good can come from that. No, we don't do that. It's like that. Yeah. No good can come from you remembering all the assimilations and the screaming. Yeah. Well, I think it's an interesting parallel with what they did with Michael on Discovery, because she was raised by a Vulcan and a human, but she was, in the beginning of the show, trying to sort of maintain that aloofness and trying desperately to have no emotions or to push those emotions down. But she was trying to do that without the physiology of a Vulcan.
Right.
So it didn't work. And people complained about that character, but I always felt like they were missing the point. They were missing that was a mental health battle that she was having with herself. And it was affecting her decisions, and it was affecting all kinds of things. It was affecting her development. And I think it's quite similar here, where she was raised by Vulcans, but she was not a Vulcan. And Seven was raised by whatever the Borg are, but not by humans. And now she's come back into humans. Same with Michael. And it's like, all of a sudden now you're supposed to be human. And it's complicated and it's messy and it's just not how they were raised. Yeah. That's some of my favorite stuff about Michael, actually, in Discovery. That was some of the stuff where people were really bitching about it in the early days and it being woke, but it was just because there was actually an emotional human being. They were doing the opposite of what they were doing with Spock on the original Star Trek to try to convince us that was a good thing, that he had no emotions. But here in Discovery, they were trying to do the opposite. And I just thought that was really good. And I can see parallels here.
I thought it was fascinating with Michael of her sort of trying to live up to Vulcan ideals without the Vulcan physiology. I thought that was a really interesting concept and a good idea.
Yeah.
So maybe you could look at Seven as almost a prototype for that concept.
Yeah, anytime people would complain about Discovery doing something that was just so out of order from Star Trek. It's like, no, it did it before. Everything on Discovery is from before.
Well, so much of Discovery is a love letter for Deep Space Nine.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We saw all those parallels. Well, all right. That's all my overanalysis. So let me go to Janeway's leadership corner.
Yes.
And I thought Janeway's blunt and also private conversation with Seven about what happened in engineering was great.
Yeah.
I thought that was really good.
I thought that was interesting as well, because I would imagine those sort of investigations being very dry.
Yeah.
You sit in engineering or wherever and you go through checklists. It becomes...
You read logs.
Yeah. It's a very boring, dry process.
Yeah.
And Janeway having to change the tack. I thought that was a good insight into she's dealing with something outside the normal here.
Mm-hmm. On the other hand, Chuckles, I thought, didn't react too well to B'Elanna's attitude. He could have asked her a few questions in that moment, when he just said, no, you will follow my orders. And he didn't do that. But then I was thinking, well, he's known her for a long time, and maybe he just knows that was sort of the right answer in that situation. I just don't like when you do things like that publicly.
Yeah.
When someone else can see it, then you're just showing others that that's the right way. Even if that's the right way to work with that person, I don't think just saying, you need to be following my orders is necessarily a good example of leadership.
I will take a slightly different tack. I think that's a failure of leadership by Chakotay to find out what are the reasons why B'Elanna does not want to deal with Seven of Nine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's what I mean. He could have asked a question or two.
Is she worried that she'll try and contact the Borg, sabotage the ship? What are those concerns? If the concern is, I don't want to work with her because, that's the point where Chakotay would be, quietly, that's an order.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if they're genuine concerns, that might be something worth addressing, like him going back to Janeway and saying, I know you said you didn't want a security officer, but could we put one, in an engineering shirt and have them just, quietly hang around in the background?
They do have the same shirt, so that is convenient. I mean, maybe the entire problem was that she didn't want to be distracted by Seven's boobs. Every time she tried to do her work, but her eye just kept going over there.
That's true.
It's very distracting.
Half the people in engineering keep on staring at her.
Oh, geez. That's probably true. Well, women in the future is interesting. Isn't it nice that Tom, a human man, could tell B'Elanna, a human/Klingon, how she was feeling?
Tom's a genius.
So rude. I don't know. It's really tricky. I don't know what's going on here. Is this really what the writer, who again is a woman in this episode, thinks is romantic and respectful? Or is she too sort of indoctrinated to how things work in the movie and television world where women have never really been written well? And instead we do stuff like this, where how many times have we heard in movies that it's a fine line between love and hate? It really isn't. Never in the real world is that true. It's only true in fiction. So is it just that she's stuck in that?
Is she just following a trope in the writing and running with that?
That's what I feel like. Because I know she's quite proud of this episode. And I do think there's some good stuff in it. But the Tom and B'Elanna stuff is not the good stuff.
Yeah.
I don't understand why every single time these two can't come together, every single time, it's B'Elanna's fault. It's some failing on B'Elanna's side. There's never anything for Tom to apologize for or grow from or think about or adjust to, right? It's always B'Elanna. And he takes no accountability. He doesn't try to understand her at all and cope with the nuances of her history and her personality.
I think that's the bit I can't get with Tom. It's like,
you
don't get the nuance here? Are you a teenager?
I mean, yes, right? He acts like he's still in high school. That's how he's written. You have to give... If you're going to have a long-lasting relationship, you have to give each other space to be who you are.
Yeah.
And you don't have to like all of the same things, do everything together. I mean, we have known couples who thought that's how it had to be. And then whenever somebody wanted to do something different, it was like a big fight. And that's crazy. You and I don't spend every second of every day together. I think we'd lose our minds if we did. It's like, I have things I like, you have things you like, and then we have things we like together. But there's no respect here of who B'Elanna is.
Yeah.
But Tom is allowed to be his Tom self all the time.
It's almost like, I'm Tom, I'm perfect. Why should I change? You should be the one who's the better girlfriend. I get what you mean.
When she's upset, he calls her boring. I mean,
Dude.
What are you doing? It's very upsetting. Somebody emailed us recently and said, you've really let Tom off the hook. Maybe in the early days we did, but we are not letting him off the hook now.
He's not getting off the hook in this one.
No, because this is dumb. So yeah, that's women in the future, and it's not great. And it doesn't help that it was written by a woman. That's not great, but women are just as subject to stuff like this as men are, so It's not impressed. So I'm going to take us to rating. A little bit of a conflict in this episode, so it'd be interesting to hear what you have to say, but thumbs up, thumbs down, or neutral. What is your rating?
Absolute solid neutral. It's not good enough to be good, not bad enough to be bad. This is the definition of a neutral episode. And I really just don't have any other comments. Yeah,
I get what you're saying. There are parts of this episode I really like. I like the stuff with Seven and with Janeway.
Yeah.
And there's moments with B'Elanna. I like the B'Elanna Neelix scene.
Yep.
I quite liked. But there's so many parts of it I also don't like. We could have done a much better character exploration of B'Elanna, but I really liked B'Elanna earlier in the show, but it's kind of like since we've hooked her up with Tom, we have made her so one-dimensional, which they tend to do when they're trying to put them in relationships because they don't understand that people still have all their dimensions when they get into relationships.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end, she was basically insulting herself. After Tom, again, said he was bored with her, she is sort of letting herself down, I would say, at the end by saying, I was such a coward, and now I love you. This person who was such an ass to her and such a jerk. And I hate that.
Yeah.
Because it's one thing if we were supposed to realize that and go, oh man, she's connecting with the wrong guy. But that is not what we're doing here. What we're doing here is saying Tom is great. And that's what I don't like.
Tom is the cool space cowboy.
He is not great. And I don't necessarily want the trope of the really tortured guy either, but I would like him to show a little respect for her, for who she is.
Yeah.
That's all I'm looking for. Nobody's perfect. I mean, like when you and I talk about giving each other space to be who we are, you're better at that than I am. But he has no self-awareness. And he gives her no space to be who she is, like zero. And I don't think I've ever been that person. So, yeah, it's frustrating to watch. I don't want to give it a thumbs down because I think the 7 parts are good.
Yeah.
So I think I was at a thumbs up until the very last scene.
Yeah.
And then I think I went, oh no, neutral.
Yeah.
And honestly, I feel bad because 7 deserves better than neutral.
I know what you mean. There was the point pieces like with Janeway and 7.
Mm-hmm.
And even at the beginning, 7 talking to Chakotay and wanting something to do. It made you sort of sympathize with 7. But the rest of it couldn't pull it up.
There are 3 really good scenes.
Yeah.
There's the opening with 7 and Chakotay. There's Neelix and B'Elanna.
Yes.
And then there's 7 and Janeway.
Yes.
And then the sort of B story of the aliens, that story's fine. That's fine. It's not bad, it's not great, but it's fine. But everything else is like, we need to do better. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, don't write bad soap opera.
Don't insult soap operas.
Oh, dear.
Sometimes soap operas can be so funny. I remember all of a sudden once one of them had like a Nazi storyline. It was hysterical. It's like, where? What? It was very funny.
Soap operas can be pretty wacky, yeah.
A show set in, I think it was, was it set in Wisconsin, The Young and the Restless? And all of a sudden we had it was wild. Anyway, I think that wraps up Season 4, Episode 3. Come back next week for Episode 4. In the meantime, if you'd like to send us your own over-analysis of this or any episode, or if you just want to say something nice, you can email us at ReBingeIT@gmail.com. You can also reach out to us on Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, YouTube at ReBingeIT. Or you can join the Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/Star Trek TTM podcasts.
Thanks for joining us on the ReBinge Star Trek Voyager podcast.
That's it for me.
And that's it from me.